So, welcome everyone to Startup Grind Pune and other event with Startup Grind Pune, where we continue hosting great leaders from throughout the world. And today's guest we have is Melissa Turner, who is a dental hygienist and advocate, a thought leader in the teledentistry space. She owns a couple of her own brands and also has a conference dedicated to teledentistry. So, Melissa, why not you come in and quickly introduce yourself in a bit more elaborative manner, because I know there are so many things you have been up to and would like to hear from you.
Thank you, Ayush. Yeah, we were just chatting about how we can't get things done because we're all stuck at home and we've got our kiddos around. And anyway, so this is a much needed break. So thank you for the interview. And it's great to see everybody out there who's listening. My name is Melissa Turner, and I am an American dental hygienist. For those of you who aren't familiar with what a dental hygienist is, we are part of the clinical care team, the clinical dental care team, and we work closely with the dentist to help prevent the spread and the initial oral disease. So when a patient sits in my chair, and usually a dental hygienist, the patient will spend the most time with me out of everyone on the dental care team. And so when a patient sits in my chair, not only am I looking for healthy gums, healthy teeth, but there's a lot of diseases that will show up symptomatically in the mouth as well. So I always say the mouth tells a story. And so when a dental patient sits in my chair, they open up and I can tell a life story. I can tell if they've got diabetes. I can tell if they're vitamin deficient, if they're going through a super stressful time. So as a dental hygienist, I've got the unique perspective of being a clinical provider within dentistry. But now, as Ayush said, I've created my own brands and some businesses too to help fill in some of the gaps within the dental vertical.
Great. And what got you all started, from a dental hygienist working in the office, and then I believe you've transformed, and you've been part of the whole transformation in the teledentistry space. So would you like to give us a bit of background into the teledentistry space and how it has been evolving, in the past couple of years, and then also in the light of COVID, does it changes things, and how it has been going for the last 6 months, say?
Yeah, definitely. There have been a lot of changes. So traditionally, dentistry in America has taken place within the four walls of a physical dental practice, right? And dentistry in America is kind of antiquated. It's kind of old school. It's not very technological driven yet. Which is why the introduction of teledentistry is so pivotal and such a defining moment for the industry. So teledentistry had its start probably a couple decades ago in the US government. They've been using it since then, just sporadically. But probably about 5 years ago is when it really took off in American dentistry, because this is probably too many details, but we got some dentistry codes for teledentistry. We created some dentistry codes. So now if a patient is seen by teledentistry, then we can code out for that and be reimbursed from the insurance company. So that's when it really took off. But as with anything within dentistry, those of us within dentistry are a little bit slow to catch on to the newest trends and latest trends. So for the past 5 years or so, I've been working to educate the dental providers within dentistry on the new technology that's out there so that they can expand their practices beyond the four walls of their operatories. So a lot of dentists will, build a new building or rent a new office space to expand their practice, when in reality, if they implement teledentistry, then they can expand the practice without the cost of building a new practice or renting a new space or buying another dental practice. So at its core, teledentistry is basically using technology to interact with the patient. Obviously, we can't do a root canal over teledentistry. We can't fix the tooth over teledentistry. but there are a lot of opportunities within the healthcare industry to use telehealth for post-op consults, for new patient exams, for meeting with other specialists on the care team, with talking to caregivers. There's a lot of ways that we can use this that would make healthcare and dentistry more efficient, more effective, and more convenient for the patient. So what we've seen now over the past 5 years or so, we've seen an increase in dentists and dental hygienists in America, but also around the world, who are now implementing whether it's live video chat with their patient, or whether it's, there's another type of teledentistry called store and forward teledentistry. And that's basically when you go to a patient and you collect all the assessments and all the data and all the x-rays, and then a dentist or a care provider will look at that later and do the diagnosing later. So to us on the outside of dentistry, it's like using the cloud every day, right? We do that every day. We use Siri every day. But when you get into a clinical world, these things don't come as easily. So what we've seen now, and we were talking about how COVID-19 has changed everything, right? What we've seen now is a huge spike in teledentistry and telehealth in general, but not just in America, but around the world. If you go on Google Trends and you type in teledentistry, you'll just see it go right up in, the beginning of March, because dental practices were shut down and they needed to find other touch points to meet with their patients, whether or not they would get reimbursed or paid for that appointment. It was very important for clinical providers to still have that communication with their patients. And so we've seen a huge spike in teledentistry since then. And we've also seen a big spike in the amount of teledentistry platforms and technology that's out there. Before COVID-19, I could probably name them all on my one hand, the ones that were in America. And now, after COVID-19, after the shutdown, there are so many teledentistry companies. Now there's patient-facing apps where a patient can go on the app and say, hey, I need to see a dentist, and they can connect with a dentist. They can now order the dental care to come to their home. So a dentist or a dental hygienist will take a mobile van or a trailer or a pod or portable dental units, and they can actually provide concierge dentistry and come to the patient's home. So there's many different ways we can use teledentistry right now, and it is a growing field.
Right. And yeah, I mean, it is so exciting, having these ideas. And I think it's not only happening in America, but also throughout the world, because, people are getting used to, as they say, like the newer way of living and, newer habits. So that being said, Melissa, since you are at the forefront of this thought leadership, do you feel that these trends are here to stay, or like in your experience, you found that though there's a sudden bust, but people may go back to their older habits? What do you think? Have you seen any trend to support the, support the claim that this is for the future, or is it just convenience for now?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. And as with anybody who has started a business in the last couple of years or owns a business, the trends go by generations, right? So teledentistry is here to stay, mainly because, us young folks, the millennials and the generations below us, we want that convenience. We want that gig economy. We want everything to come to us. And we expect healthcare to also be more convenient in that way too. And especially now that even teledentistry can take place on your phone. So I have patients that open wide and take a picture with their phone, and then we can communicate with them that way. And you can actually get a lot done that way. And so once the insurance companies, once the third-party payers, once the large dental practice chains start to incorporate this even more, then it will definitely be here to stay. And one thing I know is that, right now we're using words like teledentistry, like mobile dentistry when we take the service to the patient. And a lot of times when we take the services to the patient, we're using teledentistry to connect with the provider back at the dental practice. So they go hand in hand. I say mobile dentistry and teledentistry are like peanut butter and jelly. They go hand in hand. I don't know, do you eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in India? We do here in America. They're kind of good. But they go hand in hand, and you can't have one without the other. And so because they're so closely intertwined, and because in the future they will be so integrated in the everyday clinical aspect of healthcare and of dentistry, because they're so integrated, I think in years down the road, we won't even use the word teledentistry. We won't even use the word mobile dentistry, because it will be a part of what we're doing anyway. So for me, when I think of the future dental practice, I think of a physical fixed practice. You walk in the door, you see the dentist, and you say hi. But each of these practices will also have a mobile arm into the community, or virtual arm into the community. So, these dental practices can easily expand beyond their four walls without building a new dental practice, without buying another dental practice. And if they just take these services, their care, into Nike headquarters, Amazon headquarters, if they take the care into the university down the street or their child's school, then that allows them to expand their business model in ways that they've never thought to do so before. And so right now in dentistry, this is where we are. The dentists and the dental practice owners sometimes can be hygienists. We're all starting to think outside of our four walls of the dental practice, and that is where the opportunity lies to create new business and a new marketplace.
Right. And coming to opportunities, in fact, a lot of our audience actually is, is entrepreneurs, or also even on a stage where they're looking for new ideas to start things. So would you actually, because in fact, I was sharing this with you earlier also, that this is a thing of interest from leaders that we all seek, like what are the different opportunities that are really coming up, or, something that anyone today can actually work upon. So any ideas or suggestions, what is really shaping up for the future?
Mm-hmm. Well, the obvious answer is technology. If there are ways to improve the clinical experience for either the dental provider or the dental patient, we are always open to that. I know in addition to teledentistry, there's a lot of AI coming down the line. There's a lot of different opportunities in that area. One of the latest technologies in dentistry is, and this is important as a clinical provider, computers can now read, using AI, they can now read an X-ray. So they can say, this is an area of concern, this is a cavity. And so you still need the human eye to look at it and to make some judgments. But the computer can read it, and it can help calibrate clinicians, and it can help the patient have a more transparent experience when they're sitting in the chair. So I used one of the little secrets that not a lot of people know unless you work in dentistry. One of the little secrets is this. In American dentistry, dentistry is completely separate from the rest of healthcare. And that's how it began, decades ago. That's how it is now. You don't just have health insurance, you have to have dental insurance as well. When most people talk about the healthcare industry, when most people talk about healthcare providers, or even when they're writing legislation for healthcare, a lot of times they don't include dentistry in that. So that has its pros and cons. As a clinical provider, I don't like that, because I want to be connected to the rest of the body. There's an oral systemic link. I want to be part of the medical care team. But as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as someone who's looking to start in a new vertical, because dentistry is separate from healthcare, there is a lot of open space in this industry. Because when someone wants to start in healthcare, when they want to start a new service or a product in healthcare, they go to healthcare because that's where all the money is, and it's large. But if they look to dental, they'll find that there is a lot of money here too. There's a lot of open space and a lot of opportunity. Some of what happens in dentistry, in American dentistry, is that the dentist typically owns the dental practice, right? So not only does the dentist have to be the owner and sometimes the manager, but he or she also has to be the primary clinician. So most times that dentist is in the clinical chair for 40 hours a week, which leaves very little time to work on the dental business. It leaves very little time to think outside the box, to come up with new ways, new solutions to solve these things. And this is another reason why there's a lot of space right now in dentistry for entrepreneurs and for those who can recognize space and things to start. So we've seen a few dentists who quit the clinical aspect and they pursue these other paths to fill in the gaps in dentistry, and that is very helpful for us because it improves the whole experience. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. In fact, I was, asking like, are dentists turning into entrepreneurs, or are more of new entrepreneurs from the technical background coming in and say partnering with dentists? Yeah. Okay. Great. And then,
And I think what we'll see
yeah, go ahead.
in the future is dentists in America, actually, dentists are owning less and less dental practices, and they're either going into a group practice where a bunch of them own some different dental practices, or we have a DSO, a dental service model that's operating now. So as dentists own less and less dental practices, they'll have space to start to expand and become the entrepreneurs that they want to be. And a lot of them are creative too. And as a clinician, you don't get to be creative very much in the chair. So I'm looking forward to them being able to do that. Mm-hmm.
Right, right. And, when we talk about opportunities, the contrary question to it is the roadblocks. So, while you've covered it in bits and pieces here and there, but would you like to go into a detailed description of a few of the roadblocks that people face, if they are trying to build in, for teledentistry? Because I know, like, for healthcare, there are compliances, but like you mentioned that dentistry is a separate field. So are there compliances still, and what are the other roadblocks that people could face in this industry?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the most common roadblocks right now in teledentistry is the HIPAA, the privacy issues. In America, over the shutdown over the last couple of months, a lot of the privacy issues and regulations were relaxed. So a dentist could really just FaceTime with their patient without any penalty, even though it's an open network and not very HIPAA compliant, not very private. But now as we see some of these regulations start to go back to where they were, that's going to be a roadblock for many dentists because they have to pivot and switch the platforms they were using to go into something new. Just another roadblock is when I work with a lot of startups who need to connect with dental professionals, and that's as a startup that doesn't have any dental professionals, no dental background on it. If they come into dentistry, there's a lot of lingo you have to learn. There's a whole culture you have to learn. There's a big learning curve, really. And even if you're coming from medical, there's a big learning curve. And so one of the things I do is I help startups connect with dental hygienists. I help startups connect with dentists. I help startups connect with the dental practice owners who will end up using their services and their products. So that's one of the biggest learning curves, I think, and one of the biggest roadblocks for many companies who are looking to get into the dental space. They can reach the consumer, they can reach the patient, but if they want to reach the dentist or the dental hygienist or the dental therapist, that's a whole other story. And you need a connection, you need somebody on the inside to help, bridge that gap and build that trust.
Oh, definitely, that's true. In fact, from my own experience, I can say that, we all, like most of us would believe that dentistry only includes a dentist. Like, we even did not knew about the other roles. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's definitely important. So, coming back a bit about you, Melissa, again, since we come to the last part of our interview, like, what is in store for you for 2020, and, what are things we are expecting, things that you are working on in 2020? Would you like to share a bit on that?
hmm I am excited because for a couple of years now, we've said that the year 2020 was the year for teledentistry and mobile dentistry to take off, to expand, to grow. And this was before the pandemic, before the shutdown. And it's amazing to see, dentistry would have taken 10 years to advance as far as what happened overnight with the shutdown. So things have been kicked into high gear. I'm losing sleep, but this is great because I'm excited for what's to come in 2020. So one of my brands, and I have to give a shout out to my amazing business partner. Her name is Sonia Dunbar, and she is also a hygienist. And she and I, when we're separate, we get things done, but when we're together, we are a powerhouse. And so we've got so much in store for 2020. Right before the shutdown, we had our first National Mobile and Teledentistry Conference that we held in Florida, in the United States. And that was an amazing time. That was the first time this community had gotten together. And so now we are in high gear planning for the second one, which will take place in March 2021. And obviously, we're going to have a strong virtual component to that, as well as an in-person, hopefully an in-person presence as well, depending on the quarantine and social distancing requirements at that point. But as with any community, it's important to have these events to look to, these in-person networking events to look to, so that you can start to dialogue and advance the community. Through that, we also launched the first professional association for mobile and teledentistry, and it's called the American Mobile Teledentistry Alliance. And so this launched just a couple months ago, and this is another one of my brands. This is a very important support network. And an exciting thing is we have an international chapter. Even though American is in the title, we have an international chapter. And it's free for anyone outside of the United States to join. So if you're interested about learning more about teledentistry or mobile dentistry or how they work together, you're welcome to join. And then we also have a lot of speaking engagements coming up, and we're coming out with a book and a podcast that's super secret, and a few other things this year. So it really is the year for dentistry to expand outside of its physical four walls. And when we can do that, then our communities can get healthier and happier, because if the mouth is healthy, then the rest of the body is healthy. If the mouth is sick, then the rest of the body is sick. It reflects what happens in the body. So we're just excited to be able to make dentistry more convenient for our patients, and however we can do that is the path that we'll go down. So 2020 will be a big year, and even though there's only a couple months left of it.
Right, right. And we wish you all the best. And I believe, on the lighter side, at least you have started already with being a guest on the Startup Grind.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that's one thing off the list.
Yeah.
So great, thank you, Melissa, for your wisdom and for the time. If people want to get in touch with you, what would be the best way if you'd like to recommend? Would that be email or LinkedIn or Twitter? Would you like to recommend here?
Yeah, so if you're on Instagram, that's the fun side of me. You can find me at The Tooth Girl. You can also find me on Facebook or LinkedIn under Melissa Turner. And if you find yourself on the National Mobile and Teledentistry website or the American Mobile and Teledentistry Alliance website, if you hit contact us, then that will eventually get to me, and you can contact me that way as well.
Okay, great. And I'll leave a few minutes for any questions. So anyone has any questions, please post now. I have one question from an anonymous attendee who asked, Melissa, what is the secret of your beautiful smile?
Working in dentistry, there you go.
Yeah.
And the right lipstick, you got to get the right lipstick.
Yeah, so if anyone has any question, now would be the time. Otherwise, of course, like Melissa mentioned, you can get in touch, and she has just mentioned her email address. We can send it over to all the participants.